Encountering a snake in the wild is certainly scary. However, it's much scarier to find a slithering one right in your home, in your car, or to be attacked by it at all. In this episode, you'll see the most frightening snake moments, which you shouldn't watch alone. Let's go. A gift from the sky. Usually when people expect something to fall from the sky, they expect money or some other material possessions. In this case, however, something more interesting happened. A girl was sitting on her porch when suddenly a real snake landed on her. The creeping one landed literally a couple of feet away from the girl, who immediately jumped up and didn't know what to do. That can't be said about the snake, quickly oriented in space and rushed into the house. Hopefully there's another way out and the snake was planning to get out through it, because I don't know how the girl's going to find the snake in her house. I think the search would look like this. The snake was hiding in a bag with things, and it wouldn't be easy to find it. I'm sure some of you, even after watching the video, didn't understand where the snake was here. There it is, from above. Have you noticed it? But if suddenly among my viewers there are those who think that snakes are something absolutely not scary and harmless, just watch this video. A group of friends were driving towards their country house and encountered a snake in the middle of the road. No one was going to crush it, of course. People only wanted to scare it a little, so that it crawled away into the bushes, at least for a minute. But one of the friends, as is usually the case, decided to be the bravest. He approached the snake from behind and started playing with it as if he'd been taming these creatures all his life. But the first dangerous moment proved that it was all just a show. The snake didn't even bite him, and he immediately dropped it and ran away. I'm sure he'll remember that fright for a long time. Since he likes snakes so much, maybe he should just get some small snakes to start with. Here, take a look at this. This little creature seems completely harmless. Even though it crawled into the car completely by accident, people encountering the snake for the first time didn't panic. The man pressed his feet to the side and waited for his spouse to find a right bag. Then they opened the door, took the snake by the tail, and carefully placed it in the bag. Now, it would definitely not get out of there, and it would ride with them to the animal care center without any surprises. Let them figure out where it should be released. A typical day in Toronto. Often when entering the subway, buses, or any other public transport, one may see notices that animals are not allowed there, especially if they're large and potentially dangerous. This applies to dogs, as they're the most popular pets in people. But what would you say if, for example, a man with a snake rides the subway? Will you also confront him, or is he allowed to do that? Frankly speaking, if I were a conductor, I'd be afraid to even approach him. Though I know in my heart of hearts that the snake is probably tame and obedient. Sneaked up unnoticed. On the one hand, living somewhere in the countryside where you can walk to the forest is great. You got some fresh air, a place to walk, but on the other hand, there's a constant chance that you can encounter some wild creature, and it'd be fine if it were some wolves. They don't live near houses, but snakes can always come to visit you, just like the people from this video. So what do you do if that happens? A mother and her 3 children were minding their own business and didn't even notice the big creature sneaking in. Luckily for them, the snake was not aggressive. It probably just got lost. Nevertheless, it still forced the people to leave their own home and wait for the help of braver guys. Hide and seek. Besides houses, snakes have another favorite spot that all car enthusiasts know about. As you may have guessed, I'm talking about the hood. It's under it that snakes can hide for hours. It's warm, there's no sun, it's dry enough. It's like some kind of paradise for snakes. Too bad they don't realize that if the car starts, they won't have a way out of there. That's why drivers have to do things like this video. It's lucky that the girl managed to grab the snake's tail and it couldn't hurt her. Everything is always known in comparison. Everyone knows this saying, and I'm sure everyone agrees with it. But what about our case? Does it fit the general rule? On the one hand, we see fearful but persistent snakes ready to get into a car or a house. On the other hand, we see very cute creeping creatures resting on people's hands. It's as if these creatures will not hurt a fly. But we've all seen those clips on the internet where they swallow small and large animals alive. In short, write in the comments, how do you feel about these creatures? Do you find them cute? Or are they animals that should be avoided at all costs? Plans are canceled. What excuses have you come up with when you were late for school, work, or a meeting? I'm sure the theories about a broken elevator or traffic jam are already outdated. Here's a fresh one for you. Say you just stepped out onto your porch when suddenly a giant and venomous snake blocked your path. You had no choice but to go home. After all, life and your own health are more important than anything else. Why not? I think this excuse will definitely work. After all, this is exactly the situation that happened to the girl in this video. Besides, the snake in her case was far from the largest, and it probably wasn't venomous either. However, this lady who went outside didn't even flinch at the sight of the snake. The creeping creature didn't cause her absolutely any emotion, which personally surprised me a lot. I wonder how much confidence, strength, and calmness are in this fragile girl. Oh no, I guess I was wrong. She just didn't see the snake. So she stepped over it so easily and effortlessly. I can already imagine the hysteria if she accidentally stepped on the body of the creeping creature. Knock knock. As you and I have learned today, snakes love to get into someone else's space. But what happened in this video went beyond all boundaries. The creeping creature didn't just seize the moment and enter the house unintentionally. It hung over the door on purpose and waited for the moment to get inside. The little creature had a pretty working plan, which is nothing short of amazing. Fortunately, there was a surveillance camera in front of the door which noticed the movement and showed the owners this brazen snake. That's how people live in private houses near forests and meadows. There's no end of problems. What is fear? The girl in the following video definitely doesn't know the answer to this question because she sits calmly next to several huge pythons and doesn't worry about it. Yes, these snakes are not venomous, but as you know, they often bite people in self-defense. Their saliva is not capable of sending people to kingdom come, but it can definitely cause allergies or a number of irritations. By the way, do you want to be even more horrified? There was an officially documented case in history when a 5-foot-long leopard was found in the body of a python. Decide for yourself whether it's good or bad, but there are a lot of such snakes, that is, pythons, in nature. After all, what do you expect from a snake that lays 100 eggs at a time? At the same time, almost any weather conditions are suitable for them. Thanks to a gift from nature, pythons are able to independently raise their body temperature by means of muscle contraction. The reptile is able to warm itself up to 9 to 18 degrees Fahrenheit above the environment. They're also great swimmers, being extremely skilled and intelligent predators. Often their tails act as a lure. When they wave it, they give the impression that it's not a tail at all, but some small prey. A bird or someone else rushes at it when suddenly a python jumps out of an ambush and gets a hearty dinner without spending much effort on hunting. Road attack. You know, I never expected what happened in this video. Two motorcyclists were riding on the road, didn't touch anyone, and even didn't break the speed limit, as suddenly a snake jumped out on the road and almost bit one of the bikers. The snake didn't manage to bite anyone, but such behavior clearly makes you think about your safety on the road. It's worth wearing special anti-bite uniforms when you drive through such an unsafe area. Apparently, snakes even know how to make eyes at us. If they need to get somewhere, they either resort to decisive and active tactics, going straight ahead, or on the contrary, they take their time and take off a human's guard, as in this video. The snake sits quietly, presses itself against the glass, and as if remotely says, "Let me into the house, owner. Let me warm up, have a little snack, and take a bath. I won't scare or bite anyone, I promise." We know these snakes and their tricks. The man was right not to fall for these tricks and just called a snake removal service. A professional arrived on the spot and caught the snake in a cage in a couple of minutes. Did you see, by the way, that when the snake realized that it was in trouble, it immediately began to slither away? However, it didn't have time to do it. Now it'll be taken away from people and released into the wild, where it will not cause trouble to anyone. And now I'll show you how snakes deal with their prey. Python versus crocodile. You may be surprised, but battles between these living creatures in the wild are not uncommon. For a crocodile, a snake can be an easy and tasty prey. But sometimes a snake doesn't mind eating a large reptile from warm countries either. In this video, which was shot by eyewitnesses, the main role was played by a giant albino python. Usually, I'm kindly envious of creatures with such an interesting color feature, but if I were this snake, I wouldn't be happy. It seems to me that this coloration makes it much more conspicuous and spoils its camouflage. However, the creeping creature proves me otherwise and easily catches the crocodile in its tenacious grip. The video shows the poor guy twitching its limb, but all its attempts to get out are in vain. At that moment, the crocodile was already a quarter of its body inside the snake, which meant there was no chance of escape. The only thing it had to hope for was that someone would come and scare the snake. In case you didn't know, when some predator shows up, snakes often spit out their prey in order to become more agile, lighter, and maneuverable. After all, why would you need food when you can become food yourself, right? How do they do it? Such thoughts came to mind as soon as I watched another video starring a snake. On it, the reptile was eating a frog that was still alive. Have you ever wondered how a snake opens its mouth so wide? Maybe it doesn't have any bones. Well, it may seem like there are no bones at all, but in fact, there are a lot of bones. Some snakes have up to 145 pairs of ribs attached to their flexible spine, but that's not even the point. It's all about the remarkable ability of snakes to digest their prey live. Inside their small intestine, the soft tissues and skeleton of a prey begin to break down. Then potent enzymes and acid come into play. The acidity in the snake's stomach exceeds that of humans by about 7 times. Next, what's left over moves to the colon, where it undergoes final digestion. Enzymes break down the soft tissues and skeleton of a prey within a few hours. If we're talking about larger prey, like the crocodile, it may take the snake about a week or even a month to digest it. But snakes don't always hunt small prey. Sometimes their diet includes much larger creatures, such as this deer. Of course, snakes are happy to eat something like this once every 2 weeks, but in practice, it's extremely difficult to catch it because of its large size and high speed. The only chance for the snake to get a deer is either to sneak up on it or to make a sharp lunge, camouflaged somewhere on the road. Let alone poor deer, which spend all their lives running away from someone. Even a kangaroo can be eaten by a snake, and there shouldn't be any question about weaker animals at all. Just look at such a big prey the snake is eating. There's a feeling that a little more and the snake will burst from greed. But somehow, magically, it manages to cram all its prey into its belly. Oh, I wish I could learn this skill and learn how to pack my stuff in a suitcase in the same cool and compact way. Python versus tiger. Gradually, the bar of opponents only raises. One might get the feeling that the next headline will be something like Python versus elephant. But don't worry, the tiger is probably the most dangerous animal that a snake can mess with. The fact is that these big cats are insanely strong fighters in one-on-one combat. They can defeat even a lion because of their solitary lifestyle. The kings of the jungle, on the contrary, always count on team play and attack by the whole pride. But that's not what we're talking about now. We're interested in the confrontation between a giant python and a hungry tiger. At first, it seemed to me that the snake had no chance of winning in such a duel. No matter how you look at it, the tiger will bite through its skin or even tear it to shreds with its sharp claws. However, something clearly went wrong with the big cat. It couldn't beat the python. On the contrary, at some point, the tiger relaxed its guard and fell into the trap of the reptile. The snake wrapped itself around its prey and began to tighten its grip as hard as possible. The reptile tried to deprive the tiger of all its vital forces. It was still a mystery exactly how this story ended, so I suggest you use your imagination and write your version in the comments. Which animal do you think won? Something tells me that the snake knocked the living daylights out of that tiger. The king in action. I think those who are interested in the world of snakes have already guessed which snake I'm going to talk about. Yes, of course you're right, it's the king cobra, the very snake that can feed on other creeping reptiles, including extremely venomous ones. And if 2 such cobras claim one prey at once, then they'll begin to compare their size. The bigger one will take the winnings. The smaller one will have to immediately slither out of sight. It's also said that the king cobra has an excellent memory and is able to distinguish the one who caught it from all other people. So I wouldn't advise you to go looking for it, much less catch it. Otherwise, you'll pull the snake out of its native habitat and it will remind you of that someday. It knows that in the case of snakes, you always have to grab the head, and it did just that. I think the smaller reptile had no chance of escape. Sometimes they need help too. We looked at all kinds of videos, and in each of them the snakes seemed so strong, independent, clever, and agile. There's a feeling that a snake just physically cannot get into any trouble, but in fact this is not the case. For example, in this video, a snake had a fight with a monitor lizard. Even though the second one was small, something didn't work out for the reptile, and it ended up in the tenacious grip of the predator. I think the snake had no chance of escape at all. But then, just like a superhero from the movies, a man came to it. He picked up the fighting creatures and carried them to his side. There, he unhooked them and then dragged them to different corners. The man immediately forgot about the monitor lizard because it was safe and sound, but the snake needed help. To provide it, the rescuers placed the snake in a large jar in a clever and confident way and took it with them for examination. I wonder how surgeries and stuff like that happen in the case of snakes. Are they injected with some kind of a sedative, or maybe people put them in a place where they can't twirl? Write in the comments if you know the answer to this question, or have a cool guess. Remember how in the story about the king cobra I mentioned its incredible memory? It seems to me that other snakes also have a very good memory. The fact is that in the same area where the events from the past story took place, people found some brawlers. They were again a monitor lizard and a snake. And you know what the most interesting thing is? There's a chance that these are exactly the same animals which have already fought with each other. They tracked each other down, grew up, and arranged a rematch. The snake didn't like that it was considered weak and taken for treatment. However, the monitor lizard didn't care. It just wanted to eat. Well, monitor lizards can barely deal with snakes. Tigers are also inferior to them, let alone deer, frogs, and crocodiles. So what animal can deal with these creeping creatures? Turns out that domestic dogs can do it. Our favorite and loyal friends, which will never leave their owner in trouble. Don't you believe me? Then here's the video proof. This video shows a dog desperately defending its home and territory from an extremely venomous and aggressive snake. The fact is that the dog does it very confidently, deftly, and successfully. The snake doesn't have time to recover and focus on the dog as it gets bitten one more time. Can't tell you exactly how this video ended, but something tells me that with such an eagerness, the doggy didn't leave the snake a single chance for survival. This is what I call crawled in the wrong neighborhood. Fight on the road. The authors of the following video were driving somewhere on their way when suddenly someone blocked their way. It wasn't a giant cow or a group of ducklings crossing to the other side. It was a real fight between snakes. The two little ones were fighting as briskly and boldly as if they were 3 times bigger than they really were. You could feel the aggression and confidence in their every move. I mean it. I've never seen such fast and accurate dodges in my life. Maybe only in some movie, though. I wonder if anyone has emerged victorious from this battle, or did they part in peace? What do you think about this? Write in the comments. Is the gecko the main kryptonite of snakes? I don't know about you, but I keep hearing that if there are geckos in or near a house, there simply can't be any snakes in the area. Allegedly, snakes are afraid of them and try to crawl around 100 yards away. Wait, don't rush to buy these lizards for yourself. Turns out that all this was nothing more than a myth. Look at the fight these creatures got into, or rather, what a tangle they got into. It looks worse than wired headphones after they've been in your pocket for a couple of hours. I think that's enough dangerous snakes for today. Now I'll show you the funniest zoo animal moment. Of course, all kinds of tricks are great, but most primates and other animals at the zoo have to entertain themselves on their own. For example, they can jump on ropes and vines. However, not everyone's good at it. Still remember that raccoon dancer from the beginning of the episode that synchronized with the girl? Well, not only raccoons can catch the rhythm, but also bears. This animal decided to have fun with the children who came to visit it. It began to jump, and the children began to repeat after it. It was not possible to synchronize with all of them, but it was still an extraordinary moment, although it was more sad than funny because the bear probably wanted to get out of the enclosure and feel freedom. You've all seen sea lions and other seals. It seems like all they do is crawl around on their bellies all the time, but that's not quite true. Seals can stand up on their hind flippers and stretch out to their full height. Look how it happens. Here, the zoo employee decided to feed his charges, and 2 of them, the most agile ones, stood up on their flippers. Of course, sea lions can't stand without any support at all. As you can see, they're holding onto the rock wall so they don't fall, but even in this case it looks cool. It's also really cute. Looking at such footage, you even forget that sea lions are actually predators. You know what else looks cute? These rhinos named Lunga and Faith. These cubs have been together since birth and love each other so much that they even exchange kisses. No matter what anyone says, all cats are the same at heart. Whether it's a small kitten or a huge tiger, they all have similar behaviors. Look at this white tiger messing around with a box. It's trying to climb in it and make itself comfortable, like a real domestic cat. But this cat is too big and the box is too small for it, so the tiger just crushed it. By the way, do you know why cats are always trying to get into boxes, suitcases, and other such tight places? Scientists believe that this is due to the fact that cats like dark, cozy, and protected spaces. Almost all cats are solitary creatures that try to be away from people and even their congeners. A box is the perfect place to seclude themselves and hide from the world. At least, that's what cats think. Working at the zoo has its advantages. For example, you can see animals from angles that ordinary visitors never see them from. This is the view of a man working with giraffes. Once again, you're surprised how tall these animals are after all. And yet, most of the work at the zoo is quite dirty in the truest sense of the word, especially if you have to work with large animals like rhinos. There are no comments here, you just have to see it. That's all, guys. Which moment surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.